Hello, my name is Marcus and welcome to Tabletop Reviews with another Take to Ride map collection. This is India and Switzerland collection number 2. And of course this is going to be the last Take to Ride for a little while because I don't have any more in my collection, but I'm still missing a few. I've already begun doing a sort of a ranking of them because I really want to do that. Anyways, a fun fact I know about this one is Switzerland used to be a little small box individual thing, but then when they made India they decided to put it in. A little bit more mass market, if you will. I'm sure there's other fun facts, but this is just the only one I know of. So let's get it to the table, see how it's set up and played. Alright, let's get the lid off here. Move it to the side, rule books to the side, and get out the map. Let's start off on the India side, because that is the main namesake. Bam! Just get roots out here as well. Of course, from any of the games, I'm just using the real content. You're gonna need trains in whatever color to the amount of people that you're playing, 2 point markers in the same colors, of course, and an entire deck of train cards. Just out of 2 to each player, and down here flip over 5. Just to start off with, each player then gets 1, 2, 3, 4 train route tickets here. And then of course pick at least 2 of them to keep. Let's just, what would I keep of these ones? These 3, just for example. This one is the very important one, of course. And then you're ready to start. And the rules are kind of the same. You can spend a turn getting 2 cards, taking 2 face up, or drawing 2 from the top deck. If one of the face up is a locomotive, you may only draw that 1 locomotive. You can spend your turn putting some down. I have 3 blues. I'm gonna put down 3 blues right there. 1, 2, 3, just for the example's fault. There's of course the things that are double lining this one. In a 2 and 3 player game, you are now the only one that can take this one. The red one is closed. In a 4 player game, both of them are open. Down here you need at least 1 locomotive and any color. Here you need at least 2 locomotives and 4 of the same color. We know these rules already. Spend a turn getting more tickets, drawing 3, keeping at least 1 of them. And yeah, that is how you play. At the end there is of course scoring for your routes that you have completed. Of course when you put down 3 you would get, well, for 3 it's 4 points, 4 it's 7 points, 6 it's 15 points, and 8 is 21 points. There's an 8 route, and it looks right here. Always, I find it that the highest one, there's always one of them. Like right in this one there's 8, there's only one 8 route, and then there's a few 6 routes. I find that to be the case. Anyways. There's 2 other things. The first thing is the longest unbroken route, right? The Indian Express. We know this one is the Europe Express, and it's in many games. Whoever has the most connected trains on the board gets 10 extra points. You can also score for this one, the Mandala, the whatever the hell it's called, Indian Mandala bonus point. This is routes between 2 cities that are at least 2 long. So, for example, the all important one right here, Madras and Quilon. So Quilon is here, Madras is here. So if I just complete this route that I'm sort of building here, bam, I've completed the route with 1. Now if I take this one and I also go, across here, I've now completed the route twice, still using at least 2, right? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. I would have done it twice. That's now worth 10 points. It would be worth 5 points in of its own to just complete the route. If I put it down here, this is an arguable one, right? So if I put it down here, I've technically done it. 1, 2, and connected them. You could argue that because you're using this one in 2 routes, it wouldn't count. I've read the rules, there isn't really one, so it's up to you and your playing group. But this would now be 20 points if you counted that. I could go around here. I have a third one. It's now 20 points. It's now worth. This is the fourth one. So it's not for 30 points, and you can go this until you have 5, and then it's just the same. So, for example, these two, just as an example, I have Lucknow and to a road. This is one, and Lucknow to Bombay. So where the frick is Lucknow? So it's all the way up here. It's right there, right? So from this one down the road, and maybe, just maybe, I could include Bombay in this one, right? So I would complete this one, completing 2 roads. I mean, to score a whole bunch of points for that one. I mean, where the heck did I just say Bombay was? Right there, right? So if I build this one down here, bam, 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 just a direct route up to Lucknow here. And bam. And then if I build this way down, maybe I'm lucky I have some routes down here somehow. That would of course be awesome, but that is of course the randomness of it. And then just going straight to Madras. Okay, now I have 2 going to a road. I've had Bombay in over it. Technically this one goes around and hits Bombay, right? Again, this is where you can kind of argue, you know, these uses the same ones. Do they count as different? Maybe you make a rule that this one doesn't count because it's only 1 different. So if it's at least 2 more different ones, you can use one of the same. Maybe that's the rule. The rule book doesn't really say. I mean, I've read it in here. We can take the English part real quick, you know. Endgame bonus here. Each player may also earn the Grand Tour of India. That's what it's called. I forgot. And a ticket worth whose 2 destination cities are linked via at least 2 distinct continuous paths of zone. Oh, distinct. One with plastic train qualifies for Grand Tour bonus. These 2 paths may intersect but cannot share trains. Shit, it says it right there. They cannot share trains. That's the interesting one. Okay, so it says right there, black on white. I haven't read the rule books. Good thing to read it out. This shit doesn't count. Of course, I would say there's always room. So if you were to do, you know, for example, this massive one, there is going to be an intersecting. Maybe you could count it. Maybe you go for 100% by the book. Good thing I read it. I always read the rule book a couple of times because I totally missed that. But basically, you could score upwards of 40 points extra for your route. And I mean, some people probably wouldn't count this one in the Indian Express. I totally would because they're all freaking connected. But it's definitely worth something, like if you had a route up here, a route down here. Okay, maybe I'm not gonna get an Indian Express, but maybe I can max out this one. Definitely give some tactical stuff. Anyways, let's clear the board real quick of all these damn trains that showed an example that totally wouldn't count. Interesting rule. Anyway, just gonna remove the tickets, because that's basically the only thing that's going to be different, of course. So flipping it over to the Switzerland map. Bam, a lot of mountains, as you can already see. Anyways, it's of course the same. These 5 are out. You have the colors on 100, which is of course 0. Your trains are here. Now the rules doesn't say to do this, but I would 100% do this. I will explain it in just a second. Anyways, I would do this in a Europe style. I don't think the rules says to do so. I mean, I know the rules doesn't say to do so, but I mean, let me check, because that Indian blunder was freaking stupid. It doesn't say to do it, but I would 100% do it. So you have these ones, which include countries, and you have these ones, which just include cities. We know these ones. So mix them up, and then I would do sort of a Europe thing, where I give 3 of these to each player. No, 4 of these. And then 1 of these to each player. Because... So this one, you start in Italy, and then if you go to France, you get 11 points, Germany gets 13, Austria gets 6 points. There's also some that include cities. Let's see which one this one got. This is from France, and then to the different ones. Just do a quick thing, I'll find one with the city. It's right here. So for example, this one is from Zurich to enter the country. You get 11, 7, 3, 7. And the reason I would give this one out, because they're quite easy, right? Like, city is of course quite specific, but having this one, just go from Italy to any one of the countries to score a point. You can of course focus on Germany. But if I have, what do I have in here? See, look at this. I have La Chaux de Fonds and Bern. It's right up at France, so I can easily connect France with those. Okay, wow, a lot of La Chaux here is like way easy. This one, Interlaken and Winterthur, I'm real close to Germany on this one. Very easy to quickly do that. And then just connect them to Italy. I mean, this one even is fairly close to connecting to Italy. So like these three together, we have a bunch of points. Of course, you gotta keep these ones as well. This is an incredibly lucky hand draw. But this is why I'm keeping these ones, because they're incredibly easy to score. And I mean, there is one that's going from Zurich and from Bern, right? I mean, you saw the Zurich one up there. This one is going from Bern. So what I would do is, and this is a bit of a rule change, because it doesn't say to split them up, just have them together. But I think that's unfair. If you draw too many of these ones, you're gonna, the city country ones, you're gonna get a lot of points very easily. So I would say have them in two different piles, and you can then choose to draw up, I think it's 3, or is it 4? It's 3 in this one. 3 new one for this one, or just 1 from here, because I'm just drawing this one up here. I'll look at that. It would be incredibly lucky. It's Zurich. I'm already connecting Zurich. I'm already connecting Italy. Maximum points right there. And I mean, in this one, it's just Austria to one of the other countries. Again, very easy to get that done if you already have some good routes. I mean, most of these are going to have some good routes, giving you some variability in points. So definitely draw them up individually. But otherwise, the game is the same. You draw up 2 train cards, draw from the top of the deck. A very different thing here is, if there's a locomotive on top of the deck, you can draw still 2. You can get a locomotive, and then any other one you want, or 2 locomotives. Because locomotives may only be used on mountain roads. There's plenty of mountain roads, so it's still a bit up there. But of course, mountain roads, if you play it, you draw up for the top 3 cards. If any of them matches the color, including if they're in locomotive, you have to pay extra cost. So let's say I wanted to do, what do I have here? I don't have a white and a locomotive, so let's say I wanted to do this one. Alright, I have a white and a locomotive. Pretty decent hand to start with. I would draw the top 3. Here I'm lucky. If I were to draw up, right there, there's not a lot of whites in this deck, I see. If I were to draw this, I would need to pay 1 more white. I don't have that. And of course, if I were to draw from it, where the heck is it? A locomotive, bam! Then I would have to pay another color. If I were, however, to pay 2 locomotives, even if there's this one in the white color that I'm going for, none of them counts. It has to be a locomotive to increase the cost to another locomotive. So that way it makes sense, but you can only use locomotives on mountain roads, but, well, I mean, look at it. If you want to go to Italy, it's mountain, 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 mountain. If you want to go to Austria, mountain, 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 mountain. So France and Germany are only options out without mountains. And of course, moving around inside of Switzerland. But that's an interesting change to the rules for that one. At the end, you have, the Transalpine Express, just the longest route. That's like Indian Express. 10 extra points for that. And that's about it. Of course, your routes, score your points. And if you look at this one of the countries, the rules say to only score the top one, right? 13. That's all you're going to get. If you don't complete it, you lose the least amount, so 6 points. So they're very forgiving. Here's another change I would make, is you score all the points individually. If you make it to France, you get 11 points. To Germany, you make 12. 13, and to Austria is 6. If you only make it to Germany and Austria, you get minus 11, including, of course, 19. Just to mix it up a little bit, make it a bit more interesting and a bit higher scoring. And also meaning that you want to focus on these ones. And if you can get another one, which, as I say, you spend 1 turn to just get 1 more. Changing up the rules a little bit there, but making it very interesting. I think it's very interesting in itself, but anyways, that's how we play this game. Yeah, it's not a lot to talk about. Let's get back to the table and talk about it. Right, there we are. A little bit embarrassed about that India thing. When we've played it a few times, we've sort of had a little discussion, like, does it count or not? And we've kind of done, like, you need to have a larger change, but of course you can't use the same as the rules black and white. It's not the first time I've met the rule on that's just said there, but it's the first time in a review. So, anyways, let's talk about the gameplay of this one. First of all, is of course it is just Ticket to Ride. Ticket to Ride is a great game, great gameplay. How do they change it up? Well, India of course changes it in the way that you both have the Express, but also the Grand Tour bonuses. And definitely is going to change up how you look at the board. You might not immediately think, how am I going to connect these two? You might think, okay, because it gives you, the Grand Tour gives you way more points. Can you give more points out of it, or maybe you can't even sneak in a connected one, right? Definitely very interesting. I was, of course, lucky in the cards that I drew up to start with. You might not always be, but that's definitely changing up the thinking throughout the game of how you're going to go about doing it. Because in Europe, it's very much, you know, I don't want to use my depot, my stations, because I want to have the connection, but I do have the stations. This one is the same. Like this one encourages you to not maybe just go for the longest route, which you would always try and go for in Europe, right? But also grants you a clear, different way of scoring a lot of points. So you might see smaller clusters on the board, but it is a smaller board, so that is going to make it quite interesting. Switzerland, of course, changes it up in the way that you can draw a locomotive and another card. You can always get a locomotive, but you have to use it for their the mountain routes only. But there's a lot of mountain routes, so I don't see how it really makes a massive difference. But it does do a little bit of a difference, I guess. But it's just, I don't see how it is a massive difference to it, because as you see, there's so many mountain routes, so you're going to go through mountains no matter what. So you might as well grab a locomotive and another color, because it's going to help you a lot. So, but it does, you know, definitely speed the game up a little bit, I guess, because when you're looking at it, some people are always going to have spent one turn just getting that one card. So it does kind of speed the game up a little bit, so to speak. And of course you have the scoring cards. In the base game, you just have them shuffled together. I think it's a little bit lucky, because you could end up, I mean, if you have two cards of countries connecting, you just connect those two countries, you're scoring right, bam, right there, you're scoring some points. So therefore I think the way that I do it is a little bit better, and it's always going to drag it down ever so slightly, because I always say if you're house ruling a game and it makes it better, and you want to play it that way, the game wasn't amazing to start with, so Switzerland's definitely being dragged a little bit down by that, but it's still a Ticket to Ride, which has a really, really interesting inclusion. So it's still high, it just gets higher with my little house rule. Definitely interesting, and not so punishing. Like you're minusing the lowest but scoring the highest if you've completed multiple. So that's very interesting, not so punishing as I'm trying, kind of making it. But definitely a very interesting way of scoring, and I just like the look of the Switzerland map, I have to say. This is another map collection where I definitely prefer the secondary map, Switzerland, right? Like in Japan and Italy, I prefer Italy. United Kingdom and Pennsylvania, I prefer Pennsylvania. I think it's only really Asian, legendary Asia, where I prefer Asia. So far, I mean, we'll see if France and Old West, once they get hold of it, changes that, and I like France more. But realistically, I mean, even Rails and Sails is, you know, the world is the main map, but I prefer Great Lakes. If I have to play it, so to speak. So yeah. I think that's interesting that most of them I like the secondary map more than I do the primary map, which is here is India, just because the scoring is definitely very interesting, but this one changes, very much changes sort of the gameplay and the way you go through it. This one just kind of changes it a little bit. I don't think it changes it that much, but still actually quite a bit more. I like it a lot more than Legendary Asia from the last one. Anyways, components are the same. I mean, in here you only have the cards and the map, and the map is good quality. It's way better quality than Asian Legendary Asia. I did complain a little bit about that one. It's really good quality, and cards are the good quality you expect, so there's not a lot to talk about in the components. The theme is, again, it doesn't shine through. I mean, you can in this one kind of talk about the fact that in Switzerland we have a lot of mountain roads. It is of course up in the Alps, so that is very much what's it called? Thematic. That has so many mountain routes. That's very thematic, I would say. And also, but yeah. And you can talk about these two specific ones because there's a lot of trains in both these ones, and a lot of trains in India, a lot of trains in Switzerland. You can say that the amount of routes and the openness that there are to these two maps are also quite thematic. But again, it's very much a mechanical game more than it is a thematical game. Should draw it down for me, but it doesn't really. Does it lie to you? What does it say on this one? It's on the headset. 2 to 4 players, 8 and up, 30 to 60 minutes. So yeah, I mean 30 to 60 minutes is the same as always. Depends a little bit on it. I have more trains, so it's always going to prolong the game a little bit, because I just like playing with all the trains, but whatever. 2 to 4 players, of course, that's where you want to play. They are a little bit tight, so I wouldn't play it at 5, you know, add that extra person like in Europe and in regular Ticket to Ride. So I'd probably keep it at 2 or 3 or 4, you know. 2 players is always great with Ticket to Rides, but 3 or 4 is probably where these fit in pretty well. So yeah, and of course then you have 8 and up. I don't know if India is, the mandala thing was, even for me it was a little bit like, okay, so what? I had to read it a couple of times before I understood it, but then it's quite simple. I think Switzerland is probably it's a very forgiving map, map, and very like eligible for the younger audience, definitely. India is honestly also, and the fact that you can score a lot of points just by doing the same route over and over and over again is pretty nice for the younger audience. I think both of these are fairly open for the younger audience, definitely. So I can see it being for a few younger ones, for these ones. My score for this one is going to be, I thought about it a little bit, because in the end, like, this one is interesting. Switzerland's a bit lucky and house ruled a little bit. This one's pretty interesting, but it's just, I don't know, it's a weird scoring where you don't really encourage to actually draw more tickets and stuff. But I thought a little bit about, I actually really like these maps. Although I have issues, I really do like them. Even without house rule, I really like this one, an interesting way of scoring. This one as well, this very interesting thing where you have also a very different choice in going around at the same 2 areas maybe. Not so much wanting to connect them. And it can of course confuse your opponent as to which 2 cities are you connecting. So I'm going to give them a 9 out of 10 because it's very interesting and it intrigues me more and more the more I think about it. Even though I have a few issues with it, and that's probably what's keeping it away from a 10 out of 10. A definite 9 out of 10 for this map collection is great, and it's one where I love both maps. I mean that hasn't really happened a lot. I mean sure, Pennsylvania and United Kingdom where I really love both maps. And then, you know, Legendary Asia I'm not happy about, Japan I don't dislike. There's another one where I like both maps, and that's always a good thing. So it's of course then in my collection because I need to have all of the Ticket to Rides. I am addicted, I have an issue, please help. Thank you very much for watching this one, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye!